All right, today we are digging into something that sounds, well, kind of impossible. We're talking about an agricultural revolution happening in South Korea, where farmers are pulling off some serious horticultural magic.
Just think about that for a second. Could you really grow things like coffee and bananas in a place with freezing cold winters? I mean, these are tropical plants we're talking about. It sounds like a total non-starter, right? Well, it turns out the answer is a resounding yes, and how they're doing it is just, it's brilliant.
Okay, so let's get right into the core of the problem here. Korea has a temperate climate. That means cold winters. It's the exact opposite of what tropical crops like bananas and coffee need to survive, let alone thrive. So to get around that, you can't just try a little harder. You need a completely new way of thinking.
Now, this isn't actually Korea's first crack at this. Way back in the 80s, there was this big domestic banana boom. But it was all built on these really expensive fossil fuel heated greenhouses. So when the market opened up to cheaper imports in the 90s, the whole thing just collapsed. The fuel costs were way too high, and by 2012, domestic banana farming had practically vanished.
So that's the big question, right? How are today's farmers succeeding where everyone else failed? And this is where the story gets so cool. They're doing it without those insane heating bills. The secret isn't some fancy high-tech gadget. No, it's something much, much simpler. And it all started with a pile of compost.
And the heart of this whole thing, where this idea even came from, it's not what you'd expect. It wasn't dreamed up in some big corporate R&D lab. It actually started with a really simple memory, posted on an online forum.
Get this. Back in 2011, somebody posted this online. They were just reminiscing about seeing steam rise from a compost pile all winter long out in the country. And then they wondered, hey, could you actually use that heat for something? That one little question is what kicked this whole thing off.
And that steam they remembered? It wasn't just a little bit of warmth. We're talking serious heat. Scientific research shows that as all those tiny microbes break down the organic stuff in compost, the fermentation process can generate temperatures up to a whopping 72 degrees Celsius. That's about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. It's literally a natural furnace just sitting there.
So, how did they actually turn this idea into reality? Well, they developed what's called a mugawan, or non-heated system. It's pretty straightforward. You mix up farm byproducts like rice bran and sawdust, you add the right microbes to get that fermentation going, and then you just run some pipes through the pile. The hot air gets captured and circulated through the greenhouse. It's a simple, sustainable, and basically free source of heat. Incredible.
But hold on, because the story gets even better. This core idea of using compost for heat was just the beginning. Innovators started blending this technique with both ancient Korean wisdom and modern technology to build something entirely new.
I mean, just look at the difference. The old way, with fossil fuels, it's expensive, the costs go up and down, it's bad for the environment, and you need all this complicated equipment. The new way, you're using farm waste, stuff you already have. It's eco-friendly, sustainable, and the setup is so much simpler and cheaper. It's a total game changer. And what's so fascinating is that this new idea isn't entirely new. A pioneer in this field, Professor Kang Won-hee, actually got his inspiration from a Korean agricultural book written all the way back in 1459. It's called the Sanga-yorok, and it literally described how to build traditional greenhouses, or onsil, that use natural insulation to grow veggies right through the winter. He just adapted those ancient principles for today.
And the results are just wow. Listen to this. He combined the fermentation heat with insulation made from rice husks and straw bales. In one test, his greenhouse stayed at a comfortable 8.3 degrees Celsius. That's about 47 Fahrenheit, even when the temperature outside plummeted to a brutal -22. It just proves that this mix of ancient wisdom and modern thinking really works.
But here's the thing. It's not just about keeping the plants from freezing. It's about creating the perfect climate. Farmers are taking this to a whole new level. One coffee producer, CEO Cha Song-ha, actually uses weather data from Ethiopia to perfectly simulate the ideal growing conditions for his coffee trees. Others are going all in on natural farming, using things like beneficial microbes to make the soil super healthy, creating premium organic crops without any chemical fertilizers at all.
So, what does this all mean for the fruit you actually eat?
Well, it means we're seeing this whole new generation of farmers. They're not just growing produce, they're crafting this premium, local, and super sustainable alternative to all the stuff that gets shipped in from overseas. Take a guy like Kang Sang-hoon, a young farmer who started all banana. He was smart about it. He knew he couldn't compete with cheap, mass-produced imports on price, so he didn't even try. Instead, he targeted a completely different market, people who want high-quality, eco-friendly food, and who trust something grown locally. And you can really see the difference. The banana you get at the supermarket might have been traveling for a month. It was probably picked when it was rock hard and green and then treated with chemicals to ripen it. The Korean old banana, it's harvested when it's much closer to being ripe. It gets to you in less than a day, and it's grown completely organically. The result? A way better flavor. Sweeter, chewier, just a better banana.
And don't think this is just a couple of small farms here and there. This is starting to scale up in a big way. Remember that coffee CEO, Cha Sang-hwa? His single farm with its 60,000 coffee trees now produces half of all the coffee grown in the entire Jeonnam region of South Korea. That's huge! But the story doesn't end there. In this really fascinating twist, the same exact technology that was developed to solve a local problem, how to heat a greenhouse in Korea, is now being exported to help solve a massive global crisis.
Okay, to get this next part, you need to know about something called Panama disease. It's this awful fungal disease that just completely destroys banana plants. It gets in the soil, stays there for decades, and it has wiped out entire plantations all over the world. It is a huge threat to the global banana supply.
So what does any of this have to do with Korean farmers? Well, it all comes back to that amazing compost. Remember those little microbes that were generating all that heat? Turns out they have another superpower.
Korean companies are now actually exporting their special organic compost to places like the Philippines. It turns out that their patented microbes don't just create heat, they also produce natural antibiotic substances. And in field tests, this compost has been proven to suppress Panama disease in the soil. So an innovation that started as a way to heat greenhouses in Korea has become a tool to heal crops on the other side of the world.
Which really brings us to the big takeaway here. This whole incredible story, from a domestic farming revolution to a potential fix for a global food crisis, it all started because one person noticed steam rising from a pile of compost. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other huge, impossible problems could we solve if we just paid a little more attention to the quiet, powerful answers that nature has waiting for us? Thanks for tuning in.